less than a mile from Venice's gondolas and crowded piazzas, sits an island that Italy has spent a century trying to make people forget. Poveglia lies in the southern Venetian Lagoon in northeastern Italy, a short boat ride from Venice, and even closer to the smaller island of Malamaco. No ferry stops here, no scheduled tour will take you, and the water around it stays almost completely empty, even in the busiest tourist season. Waist-high grass and wild fig trees now push through the cracked courtyards where hundreds of people once lived, worked, and died. A leaning bell tower, tilted by centuries of soft lagoon soil, still stands over the ruins, like it is watching the water. Inside the old buildings, peeling green paint and blackened mold-cover walls that once separated the sick from the rest of Venice. A rusted gate and broken dock pilings are the only welcome anyone gets, because officially, almost no one is welcome at all. Local fishermen have long said they avoid casting nets too close to the shore, a habit that has nothing to do with the current. Millions of tourists photograph Venice every year, yet almost none of them know this island exists. Just past the edge of the map they carry. The story most locals tell starts in 1793, when a ship suspected of carrying plague was ordered to anchor near Poveglia instead of Venice. From that point on, Poveglia became a dumping ground, and historians estimate that roughly 160,000 people were buried or burned here over the centuries. Locals still repeat a grim claim that as much as 50% of the island's topsoil is made up of human ash and bone fragments. In 1922, the island took on a new purpose when Italian authorities opened a psychiatric hospital inside the old plague buildings. Former patients and staff spoke of a doctor who performed crude experimental treatments, including makeshift lobotomies, on people sent here with nowhere else to go. Legend holds that this same doctor eventually threw himself from the bell tower, though hospital records from that era remain incomplete and disputed. Multiple former nurses, interviewed decades later, claimed patients described hearing screaming at night long after the wards had gone quiet. The asylum was permanently closed in 1968, and Italian health authorities gave overcrowding and outdated facilities as the official reason. In 2014, the Italian state auctioned a 99-year lease on Poveglia, but the winning bid was later withdrawn, and no development ever happened. Since then, the Italian government has kept the island fenced and permit only, officially citing structural instability of the abandoned buildings. Several urban explorers who slipped past the fencing at night have described a suffocating, oppressive silence unlike anywhere else in the lagoon. Engineers who inspected the ruins confirmed that decades of flooding and neglect have made the floors and roofs genuinely dangerous to walk on. Yet, that structural explanation doesn't fully account for the noises multiple independent visitors have reported, sounds no one has ever fully identified. In recent years, small groups of historians, structural engineers, and documentary crews have received rare permits to study the island up close. Photographers who have gone in describe hospital beds still bolted to the floor, rusted medical equipment, and patient files scattered across the wet ground. One researcher described nature reclaiming the site so thoroughly that entire rooms are now filled floor to ceiling with roots and vines. Italian authorities patrol the perimeter periodically, and anyone caught landing without written permission can face fines under Italian trespassing law. Since the failed 2014 lease auction, the island has remained in legal limbo, owned by the state, but with no active restoration plan. Local officials in Venice have occasionally floated ideas for a supervised museum or research center, but no funding has ever moved the plan forward. For now, the dock stays locked. The buildings keep collapsing a little more with every storm, and Poveglia remains one of Italy's most restricted islands. Conservationists argue that keeping it closed is the only way to protect both the fragile structures and whatever still lies beneath the soil. So here's my question for you. If Italy handed you a permit tomorrow, would you actually set foot on Poveglia Island? Tell me honestly in the comments, would you go or would you stay on the boat? If forbidden places like this one fascinate you, subscribe now, because next time we're heading somewhere even fewer people have ever been allowed to go.